Okay, hello everybody. I'm going to be doing a demonstration on basic sound mixing. And if you're doing like a short film or a project, I'm going to show you how to do a sound mix, taking your project from Premiere Pro and putting it into Adobe Audition, which does a much better job. I've got a tutorial on how to do this in Premiere. This gets a little bit more complex than Premiere. This is for doing a little closer to a legitimate sound mix that will sound pretty good. I'm going to show you how to do stereo sound mix, a two-channel stereo left and right mix in Adobe Audition and getting it from Premiere. So first of all, we've got a project here. This is a fight scene. And one thing I recommend before you take it to sound mix, this one hasn't been color corrected in it. You'll see color shifts in the image, but this fight scene here has been edited, and a basic sound edit has been done here, where the audio has been synced and edited together, so the dialogue sounds all synced up and sounds about as good as it can get before we send it over to be sweetened, before we take it over to the sweetening process. So, but before you send it over to Audition, I recommend getting everything complete, like a visual lock on everything, which means if you have titles, this is an exciting title called The Fight. Yeah, very exciting. But if you're adding anything like a couple seconds of black, credits, opening credits, closing credits, and everything is in there and it's visually locked. Right now I've got The Fight as my opening credits to demonstrate, and a credit at the end that says The End. So it's not really complex credits there, but I just threw them in for demonstration purposes. So make sure everything is visually locked. You're not going to be adding things in, because once you send it over to Sound Mix, it's really difficult to make changes in the edit. So here we go. So first of all, what we've got here is we've got no sound effects. This is just dialogue and noises from the actual fight scene here. Let me play a little bit.
Just take it all. That's all I got. Take it. Stand up and go. Stay right there.
And you can see how it kind of goes back and forth between these clips. They're overlapped a little bit. And this thing is ready to be sent, and it's got a little bit of that, and then they start fighting. And right now, there's not much to it because it's just the edit with the sound on it. So it's all kind of looks weird, sounds weird, doesn't really play out right. Doesn't really look very good right now because the sound isn't finished. So I'm going to go up here to my final timeline. I'm going to right click on that, and we're going to say edit in Adobe Audition, and we're going to send the sequence. Now before you do that, you gotta think about what type of audio you have. This is really important, because if your audio was shot in 96,000 hertz, which is much higher quality than 48,000 hertz, you'll want to maintain that. If you make a default timeline in Premiere, it's going to default to 48,000 instead of 96. Let's take a look at the audio here, and I'm going to look at the audio information right here on these files that were recorded with the sync sound. And this is actually a 44.1, which is around like the same quality as CD quality, and the timeline is editing in 48, so it's actually kind of up-resing those things, those files, and it's kind of a lossless audio reading there. So now some audio artists will oftentimes shoot at 96,000 hertz, and if that is the case, I'm going to show that anyway. You'll want to look at your audio first and see what it's recorded at, and see what the bit depth is here. This is 24-bit, 44,000 hertz here, thereabouts, and we're going to want to make sure that it is lossless when you send it over. If it's 96, you want to maintain 96,000. So let's pretend like this audio is 96,000. I'm going to go to my sequence settings. I'm going to right click on it and go to sequence settings. Click on that, and right down here we can change our sample rate, how many hertz it has. Right here we can change the sample rate right in here. So we can click on this and go up to, look at that, 96,000 hertz right there on the sample rate. There we go. So now we hit OK, and our timeline has been changed to that sample rate. Because when we export the audio out of this to Audition, it's going to convert the audio to whatever this sample rate is right there. And if we're exporting it out at 48 and it was shot at 96, it's going to bring down the quality of the audio, and you always want to maintain the highest quality of your audio. And it's easier to clean up audio and EQ it when it maintains that sample rate and bit depth. So I'm going to go right click on this now, and we're going to go to Edit in Adobe Audition. We're going to select Sequence, and it's going to open up this little window here. So first of all, it's almost impossible to edit your audio without seeing the video. So you're going to want to, for some reason, this is always unchecked as a default. So I'm going to check mark export preview video. Now, a couple other things, render audio clip effects. If you've added any audio effects, which I don't recommend really doing in Premiere, because if you're going to be doing it in Audition, just get the basic edit down and you're going to do the audio effects in Audition. So I'm going to uncheck that. Well, you can just leave it check marked anyway, but I just usually uncheck it because I don't want any effects added to it. You can send clip volume keyframe metadata. If you've done a basic audio keyframing in here, you can check mark that. And we're going to open an Audition. One other thing before I send this over. One thing you want to do while you're editing is if audio is too loud or too quiet, really quiet while you're editing, you might want to occasionally boost some audio here. And any audio boosting that you do here, it will send that over to Audition as well. So if I right click, if this is right here, all the audio on this is already pretty decent levels, so not very quiet. But if it is a little too quiet, if your dialogue was shot at like -24 or -20, which a lot of audio artists do, so you have a higher dynamic range on the audio. If they yell and whisper, you get a better dynamic range on the audio without a clip and to keep it from clipping. But you can just right click and go to audio gain in Premiere, and you can gain it by, if your dialogue say is hitting around -24, you need to boost it about 12 more decibels. You can just say adjust the gain by 12 decibels. And you hit OK, and you notice the waveforms have increased there, and the audio is now louder. So it boosts the audio there, and then when you send it over, it'll already have a boosted audio level to start with, as opposed to trying to crank it up in Audition. It'll already have a workable audio level from Premiere. Because it's going to actually, right here in Premiere, this is not destructive right here. This is still referencing the original audio. It's just forming a live gain on it. But once you send it over to Audition, it flattens this as a turned up file, as a loud file. So if you peak here, if it peaks or clips up at the top, and you send it over to Audition, it'll be peaking in Audition. You won't be able to fix it in Audition. So just be very aware of that in Premiere when you do your audio mixing. I'm going to undo that. And now we're going to, finally send this over to Audition. We're going to check mark our export video. Not going to render audio effects. We're going to open up Audition. One other thing that you got to notice right here is these audio handles right here. Because it's going to actually it's not going to reference the original audio anymore. It's going to encapsulate all the audio inside of a folder for you. So you can hand over just like a folder to a sound artist, or if you're doing it yourself, it's all going to be encapsulated. And it's going to make copies of the new files. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this, because I like a little bit more than 1 second of handles on either end of the audio. It's going to add handles however much time you have on the beginning and end. So if you need to trim a little bit or dissolve or crossfade a little bit, you have that option. So I like to add about 5 seconds of audio handles on both sides. And we're going to send the entire sequence. I'm going to browse and make a new folder for this. I'm going to make a new folder on my desktop, and I'm going to call this Fight Audio Mix. So whatever your project name is, Fight Audio Mix. I'm going to choose that. Hit OK, and now it will export. It'll convert the video, and it's going to export out all the audio. And once that's done, I'm going to come back and show you in Audition. So that's all there really is to do to get it over to Audition. Okay, here we are in Audition. Our project has been successfully exported from Audition, and now we just quickly show you what we've got in here. Just to show you what we've quickly got in here, we've got our video line that has been kind of flattened and exported over. If you want to see your video, there's a little video tab down here. You can just click on that, and it will show your video right there. Now as we play through this, there's our video down there. And here's the audio. It's basically exactly how we edited it in Premiere. It's got all the edits. It's got kind of this A-B rolling going on with overlapped audio. Now, a couple of little shortcuts here to kind of navigate in your timeline. JKL work just the same as in an editor. If you hit L a bunch of times, it fast forwards. K will stop, and J will rewind. So you hit J once, it goes 100%. J again, it goes 150, and continues. The more you hit J or the more you hit L, it will go faster rewind and faster forward. And K will stop, or you can just hit your space bar to play and pause. A couple other things in here. If you are on a Mac, you can hold down Option and scroll on your mouse. So as you Option and scroll on your mouse, it's going to increase and decrease your track size. And then if you're on a PC, it's just Alt and scroll. And on a PC, if you do Control and scroll, it's going to zoom in and out of your timeline like this. Zoom up and zoom out. Another way of doing that, and so that's a Control on a PC and scroll, and Command on a Mac. Command scroll up and down will zoom in and zoom out, and Option will increase track size, track height. Now, a couple other quick tips here is you can press plus and plus will zoom in, minus will zoom out, just like in Premiere. And if you hit slash above your return key, the backward slash, it's the one above the return key. I don't know if that's backwards or forwards. I guess that's forwards. Forward slash, it will pull everything in your viewable area into this type. You're seeing everything pulled into this viewable space right here. So plus, minus, and that slash key, and your Alt or your Alt scroll and your Command scroll are those shortcuts. Okay, a couple other things here is if you're working on a dual screen, I really like to do this on a dual screen. I would just go ahead and grab my video tab here, and then you can just drag that, and you can drag it off your screen over to another screen. I've got a dual screen going, but you guys can't see this, so you can just grab this window, drag it over to the right, and once it's on the right-hand side of the screen, you can just hit your little plus button or expand your window so it goes full screen, so you have a full screen video. This is on a single screen right now that we're doing this demo, so I'm just going to reset back to my default. And I'm going to make a little bit more video room here and click on my video, and there we go. Okay, and we are ready to start sound mixing here. A couple other little things. On each individual track here, you're going to have an M, an S, and an R. And really the things that you need to do, you're going to be using here. You're not going to be arming anything for recording unless you're doing some ADR or recording sound directly onto your soundtrack, but we're going to use mute and solo quite a bit. This mutes just that single track, and if you hit S, it will solo that track. And it will just play this track and nothing else. It'll ignore everything else. So if you're trying to hear a sound or isolate a sound, you can just hit solo on a single track, and it will solo it. You can solo more than one track. You can solo 2 tracks at a time or 3 tracks. So I guess it's not technically solo anymore, but that's the way that works. You have a general audio level here for your entire track right here. You grab that and drag it to the right. It'll increase it by this many decibels, by +9, or if you need to turn that down, I'm just going to reset that back to 0. But you can turn up the entire track if you wish. So let's go to this little document here. I've got this little Word document that kind of explains a few things as far as the sound sweetening process. I've got everything kind of listed out in steps here. If you want to write these down, you've got the first step that I recommend using is fixing levels, going through and adjusting all your levels. Number 2, we're going to go through each one of these, is smoothing out your transitions. Number 3, remove unwanted sounds, and then EQing audio where necessary. Ambient, add ambient background sound, like a room tone or cars passing by or wind blowing or anything other sort of ambient noise. Then you go through and add sound effects. And then if you have the capability, some people will be doing Foley with this sound effects portion because they're just going to be trying to add Foley in where possible. Unless you're a Foley artist, you're a professional Foley artist, then that's a whole different ball game there. And then if you have music, you're going to be adding your music. And then when you're all done, when everything's all added and you have all these different soundtracks, the last step is to finally go through and adjust all your track levels. You can create submixes to categorize each track category, like all your dialogue into one, all your sound effects into one. If you're using tons and tons of soundtracks, this sometimes helps. The method I'm going to be showing you here, we're not really going to need to create submixes because we're not going to be doing tons of levels of sound effects. And then, of course, after you're done, you always go back and perform a final mix. But you're going to so this is the step process. We're going to start with fixing your levels. So as we're playing through this scene here, I'm going to zoom up a bit, and I'm going to play.
Just take it off. That's all I got.
Okay. Our audio, since we're working on a stereo broadcast mixer here, you should be always mixing for a -12. That leaves a little dynamic range for loud noises past -12 and for quieter noises under -12. But your dialogue, standard dialogue, should be hitting right around -12. And then after that, Standard dialogue should be hitting around -12, and after that it's going to be really loud noises. Whenever you send bars and tone to a broadcast station, you're always going to be sending them bars and tone to adjust to calibrate their levels at -12. So standard dialogue should be hitting around -12. And I would say typically if you're kind of whispering, if people are whispering and you still want to hear them, it's probably going to be around -15. Loud when they're kind of getting angry and yelling should be around -9. -6, -3. 0, by the way, is where audio clips and distorts. This is too loud. You never want to touch 0 with your audio. You want to always keep everything under 0 because that's where it starts clipping and distorting. But -6, -3 is reserved for really loud noises. -6 and -3 are reserved for really loud noises and maybe above -3. This is going to be things like punch noises and kicks and hits and up close really loud noises and maybe super loud music or super loud yelling maybe. And then as you get up to -3, then you get into kind of gunshots and explosion region here, like in your face gunshot sort of noise, and a big loud explosion is going to be way loud. And then if you want to get even, push it a little bit more, you can get up right below 0 there. You're kind of pushing it. You don't want to get too close to 0, but just always keep it under 0. And then that's really loud noises. Ambient noises are going to be hitting, for loud ambient noises, around like -27 to -30. Like if there's something standing on a freeway and you have cars driving by, around -27, -24. Really all this stuff is just kind of arbitrary and really just subjective. You got to just listen to it on a decent speaker system to really hear what those sounds, what all these sounds sound like juxtaposed against each other. Actually juxtaposed against the dialogue really. So yeah, and then regular ambient noise is usually going to be hitting around -30, -33 to 36, just depending on how it sounds. Room tone might even be a little quieter than that. It just really depends on how it sounds. Okay, so let's go through our first clips here, and we're going to start adjusting noises. What we've got on our clips here is you've got this, you got two lines. You got a volume line and you got a pan line. We're not going to really be going over panning right now. We're going to go over just adjusting levels and keyframing levels. So we're going to play through this clip. And she noticed she starts out around like -12 and then starts screaming and gets up around -6. That's too loud. Her first yells should probably be around like -12, just a little under -12. And then after that, when she yells, should probably go up to about -9. So we're going to mix that so she does so. So let's play this. When she says take it all, she screams. And right here, I'm just going to, it seems like it's really good through here. And right about here, it gets too loud, and you can kind of see those waveforms. So what I'm going to do is, by the way, if you hold down Command on a Mac or Control on a PC and get your arrow right near the volume, it has that little teeny straight line right underneath it. So watch this. As I hit Command, see that little straight line, or Control on a PC, it brings up the that little diagonal line right there. If you grab that, this is going to grab the entire volume line while I'm holding down Command or Control, and this turns down the volume for this entire clip. I'm going to undo. But now if you just go up to it and click on it with not holding down Command, it will add a keyframe. And if we want to go over here and add another keyframe like this, it's going to, from this point to this point, we can grab the second keyframe, move it down like this, and turn it down. It's going to be playing at this level, and then it will quickly turn down like this. And let's get it to turn down right before she screams again. Move this over so if you can get this kind of smooth, you won't notice the shift in audio. Let's listen to that. And she's still too loud. I'm going to grab this whole section right here. I'm just going to hit Command and grab this and drag it down even more. I'm going to turn down this just even a teeny bit and actually crank this up a teeny bit over here. There, I'm going to grab this little section in between and mix it. There we go. Let's try that. Okay, that's all up around that -9, so that's good. So that's basically how you mix right there. You're going to play through it. You're going to add your keyframes. You're going to ramp it up and down so you have consistent audio. First, it's a little quiet. So it's not quiet, but she's kind of yelling, but it's around -12. And then as she gets louder, it gets up around -9. So there's a little bit of audio shift there. At the beginning here, I want this to fade in. So I'm going to go to the beginning here, and I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to move this box over, and we've got a fade in. Audition has a nice little fade in option here, And you just grab that over, and you can grab it on the end here. I don't want it on this end because they're still talking. And this other lady comes in here and interrupts them and yells. So let's see what her audio's at. And when she yells, I can't really hear because there's two little clips. I'm going to do a teeny bit of a fade out, so it sounds like she interrupted them, then they stopped talking. But I'm going to just solo her audio here and play through it. And she yells Andy at around -9. I'm going to just fade that in a little bit and fade that out a little bit right there, just to smooth it out on the edges. And turn her down just a teeny bit, so she's around -12. Or around -9, sorry. So she's yelling around -9. There we go. Now I can unsolo that. And we can listen to... Now we can unsolo that. There we go. And listen to the other tracks. Right there, she screams. She's screaming at around -3, so that's really super loud. So I'm going to turn that down a bit, about like 4 decibels there. And she's screaming pretty loud, so just a little bit more. There we go. And I'm just going to smooth out the edges here a little bit. I'm actually kind of getting to another step right here, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. So, and once again, let's turn that down. And this, she starts out okay, but I'm going to turn this down right there. So this is, and that's the mixing process. I'm going to go through and mix the rest of this. I'm going to come back and show you the next step. So we got that mixed. And he says stay right there, and he's really quiet. So at this point, I'm going to have to crank him up. I'm going to crank him up. I'm going to fade in the beginning just to make it a little smooth there.
Stay right there.
And he's saying stay right there. Not too loud, just a little bit quieter.
Stay right there.
That's around -15. A little louder. I'm going to get that right up around -12.
Stay right there.
There we go. That's close to -12. So this is what you're going to do from beginning to end. That is the very first step. This is kind of a tedious workflow. This is the way sound mixers do it. So you got to get used to this, and it's going to be a lot of work to make your project sound good. Okay, let's go to the next step here. Let's pretend we've done our entire timeline. Smooth out transitions. I've been doing this a little bit, but I'm going to show you a couple little tricks here. Adding cross dissolves. They're actually called crossfades. Sorry, I should change that. Crossfades between edits where necessary. So if you're noticing shifts in audio, let's go back to Audition here. And I've already been doing this to an extent. Right here at the beginning, just to make this kind of smooth, just put that little fade in, so it's not a sudden cut in of audio. And over here, this is essentially a crossfade right here, where you have one fading out and another one fading in, and they kind of fade in and out of each other to make them sound a little bit smoother. So you don't hear just such abrupt changes in audio. And I'm actually going to do it here as well. Turn that down just a little bit and quickly, and this one as well. So you don't want to hear her audio turning up, but you want to have this fade in as quick as it can to make it this kind of smoothly transition in and make everything sound smooth.
Stay right there.
Okay, now this is an example of another crossfade right here. Right here, just listening. And that one's not too bad, but sometimes on these edits, you're going to hear a little shift in audio. And if you hear a little shift in audio, like right there, I could hear a little shift in audio. You can just grab the edge of one of these here, and if you look closely, when I come to the edge here, it has an arrow kind of pointing to the right, or the little red mark showing the trim is to the clip to the left, and if I move it over here, I'm trimming the clip to the right. If you grab this, you can trim the clip, and it will start adding onto the end of this, and I'm going to trim it into this clip here, and what it's doing is creating a crossfade. One is fading out, while the other one is fading in. And it creates an automatic crossfade when you butt these up against each other, just like that. And it's got this nice little crossfade. And sometimes this will sound good, and sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll start adding extra audio from an additional clip that you don't want. So you just got to be really aware of that and make sure you're not adding unwanted noises borrowed from another clip here. So, and they also call this an envelope, and the reason why is because it looks like the back of an envelope, this shape of this cross, and it's just essentially a crossfade, one clip fading in while the other one's fading out. But now you can play through it, and it's got a really nice smooth transition going from one clip to the next, and you don't notice the edit as much. So I'm going to go through and get the rest of these levels fixed. I'm going to go through and add, the second step is adding these transitions. I'm just going to add one here just to make sure it sounds smooth. And it does a smooth transition to the next clip. And my audio is a little too loud there, but I'd have to go through and fix some of the audio. But that is the next step. Is you're going to go through and add those audios where you notice those definite shifts in audio levels. I've got another project here that was kind of a crummy audio situation. I put a mic in between these two, on kind of like down below them. It wasn't even really pointing at these guys, so it got a lot of car rumbly noise. But you'll notice instances here. Listen to this. That little click noise that's in there. Hear a little click from somebody bumping the mic there, and you want to get rid of that. This audio really needs to be EQ'd, and in fact this audio is close to not even being usable on this scene. But if we're going to get rid of that unwanted noise right there, you're going to find the noise. Usually you'll be able to see it on a waveform, but right now the noise is about the car noise is about as loud as that clicking noise, so we don't really see the waveform as well there. But I'm going to find that click. There it is. In fact, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to EQ this just so we're going to clean this up a little bit. Okay. I've cleaned that audio up a little bit, and now I can see the waveform here. I'm going to show you how to clean up audio here in a little bit when we get to EQing, by the way. But I've got that little click noise right there that I want to get rid of. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to hit R for the razor blade, and you can just cut right on your clip here a little ways before, and I'm going to clip right there and isolate that little section right there. There's other ways of doing this, but this is kind of a good, easy way to do it. I'm just going to select that clip right there, hit delete, and it's gone. And now I'm going to find some audio to replace this that sounds like this consistent audio noise from the car here. I'm going to select this clip here. This is good because there's no other noises we're going to hear duplicated. I'm just going to copy. I'm going to move it over to about right here and paste, and that's enough to fill in that gap, and it did an actual cross dissolve or crossfade on both sides. So basically I cut out a clip, borrowed from this area, and pasted it over here. Let's see how that sounds. And I actually hear them sigh twice, so it might do better if I grab a section of this audio over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and grab my select tool. It's T for shortcut, and you can click on the clip and drag a little portion here that you want to select that I'm going to stick in here. Now I'm going to hit Command or Control C, copy that, and I'm going to hit G to get rid of my in point and out point, the letter G. Move this over here, click into this area here, make sure I've got this area selected, and Command or Control V. And it pastes that little clip that I just pasted in there, or that I copied. I'm going to hit V for my selection tool, or select my arrow up there, V as in Victor. And I'm going to grab the edge here and crossfade it into these clips here. And let's listen to that. And that sounds pretty good there. So nice and smooth noise there. And got rid of the unwanted noise. So if you find little noises like that, like a little bump or a click or something that you want to get rid of, or a hum or a sigh or something, you can just go in and cut that portion out with your razor, move it out, and then copy and paste a selection that sounds like that area should, and paste it in there. And it fills it in. Okay, I'm going to go back to the other project now. Okay, next part is going to be EQing audio where necessary. Sometimes audio may sound too bassy or too much like treble or bass, and you can actually do a couple different things here. I'm going to show you a couple little cleanups here. First of all, you have an EQer. I'm going to find this really bassy noise right here when the car bumps over. This is something we should just try to eliminate, but listen to this. Right there when it bumps over something, it sounds like they're running over a body. And it's really bassy. It's cranked up too loud. It's really bassy. So one way of getting rid of bassiness is you're going to select a clip, and down here in the effects rack you've got clips effects and track effects. Track effect will add an effect to the entire track and affect everything on the track. You usually don't want to do that, but I'm going to select clip effects here, and I'm going to have this clip selected, and I'm going to go up to my effects, and I'm going to go to filter and EQ, and a good standard EQing filter is, and a good standard equalizing filter is going to be Parametric Equalizer that I use quite a bit. And because you've got this chart going all the way across from your frequencies down to lower frequencies, down around 30 or 0 all the way up to like 20K here, 20,000. So higher frequency voices and screams and pitches and things like that, your human voice hitting around here somewhere, and but the bassiness is hitting here on the end. If we grab this, it's probably around like a 60 hertz. And you'll notice when you grab a node here, so to bring down the bass, I'm just going to grab this node and bring it down right around 80. And this will gradually kind of fall off and go back up to, you can grab, if you want a little more sharper fall off, you can kind of bring these other nodes up a little bit to preserve that. But let's see what we got there. Let's listen to our clip. So I'm going to move this to the side here and going to get this. And that is way less bassier there. That pulled out some of the bass. So you can go through an EQ and pull out a little bit of bass. If it's too trebly and you need to add a little bass, you can grab your bass and crank it up a little bit as opposed to turning it down. So if you have to go through and do some effect resets, you can increase bass, you can decrease bass, you can do all that to get things EQ'd on your voices. Now, a couple things that I do up here. Okay, back to our fight scene. A couple things that I do up here is I'm going to start organizing. So I'm going to get a lot of tracks here. I'm going to click on these names up here, and usually have at least 2 of each track in the very least. So I'm going to name this Dialogue 1, and I'll notice you got dialogue kind of A-B rolling up and down here. I'm going to go to this one and call it Dialogue 2. So I've got Dialogue 1, Dialogue 2. So now the next little area that I'm going to be doing, let's go to the next step here. So we've EQ'd where necessary. We've removed unwanted sounds. And actually, another way of removing unwanted sounds, let me demonstrate that really quick. It's stuff like this car noise right here. We got all this car noise driving, and we want to eliminate some of that. One way of removing some of this noise is by double clicking on a clip, and this is actually destructive because it's doing some processing on your audio, and it's referencing the new audio that's processing. Is you can double click on a clip, and by the way, this is either vector graph view up here showing the spectral frequency monitor, or you can have it show a spectral pitch display as well. It's got a lot of power in here. I'm going to show you just kind of the basics of this. I'm going to actually turn that off and just go back to the regular waveform here. But I'm going to find a little section of that noise that I want to get that's not necessarily got voice in it or other noises. It's just kind of that car noise. Right there, let me play that. That sounds like it's just car noise. So I'm going to go up to Effects. I'm going to go under Noise Reduction. I'm going to capture a noise print of that little region of car there. I'm going to hit that, and it will capture the noise print. It might bring up a little warning you that it's capturing. You just hit OK or tell it not to show that again. But now it's captured that noise print. Now I want to apply that noise reduction based on that noise print. I'm going to select my entire clip, Command A or Control A, go up to Effects, go to Noise Reduction, and click on this noise reduction process. It'll borrow from this capture noise print and decide what to remove by what I selected and told it to reduce. And hit noise reduction, and it's going to try to take out that car noise. Let's play this and listen to what it's doing so far. And actually, this will oftentimes be turned up all the way, and you're going to hear a lot, kind of a warbly noise if you do that.
How long was it out?
And it removed a lot of that noise, but it's being a little too destructive and removing a little too much. So you can do a couple things. You can tone down the noise reduction and the gain that it's doing on that noise reduction right there. So you just kind of move these around, find a nice little medium where it doesn't get the warbly noise and removes a bit of that noise. And that actually sounds a lot better than it did before. There's still a little bit of noise. You're not going to eliminate too much of it, or it's going to eventually eat into the voice. So you got to kind of find that medium. You hit apply. Once again, this is destructive, and you'll notice the audio waveform went way down. Still a little bit of noise, but it did a pretty good job of cleaning up that noise for the most part. Look at the difference here. Hit G to deselect select all that I had before, get rid of that selection, and look at the noise here compared to here. If you're going to do this, you're going to have to go through clip by clip and do the same thing. If the noise sounds the same, you can actually use that same noise print. You can hit Command A to select everything, and then go to that noise print reducer, and it's still based on that previous clip that I had, so I'm going to hit apply and see what it does here. A little bit of a different noise in this, but it got rid of a lot of that noise in there as well. So you have to kind of do this clip by clip until you get everything done that you need. There's a lot of noise still in that, so I'm going to go Back to our fight scene, and we're going to go to the next step. Our next step is adding ambient noise. So we want to add like background noise, whether it's room tone, whether it's cars driving in the background, whether it's like birds chirping or wherever they're at, whatever fits the environment. With this is supposed to be kind of this nighttime fight scene when they're in a warehouse by themselves. So there might be cars outside, or might be forest noises outside, just outside that's kind of going. I'm just going to find a little room tone here. I've got a little sound effects folder where I've got some things saved in here. I'm going to go and find some room tone that I have. You can find room tone. You can find room tone, and you can find other sound effects online. There's some free sound effect websites, but I'm going to go under kind here. I'm going to search mine under MP3s here. I've got some room tone MP3s. I'm going to listen to this. Just hit spacebar if you're on a Mac. And it comes across really loud, like a kind of a hall. There's a warehouse right there. Let's listen to warehouse. Got some buzzing from fluorescent lights, but that's not going to fit because there's no lights turned on in here. So I'm just going to grab this right there. Big echoey noise of a warehouse, it sounds like. I'm just going to grab this. I like just pulling my find over here. You can actually import it into this files area right here, but there's really no way of organizing this, which I kind of hate in Audition. So I just kind of like going to my folder and dragging and dropping it into my empty timeline here. I'm going to tell it if it's going to convert, if the sample rate's different, and that's fine. Just hit OK. Don't show this message again. Hit OK, and it will convert it to the current 96,000 sample rate. Okay, this is going to come in very loud. I'm going to actually make this one ambience. I'm going to do ambience 01. And I'm actually going to add another track. I'm going to right-click in a blank area here and say Insert. Or sorry, I'm going to do Track, and I'm going to add a mono or a stereo audio track actually, because you can put mono files or stereo files in a stereo audio track. I'm going to add one right here. I'm going to name this one Ambience 2. So I've got a couple tracks for Ambient 1 and 2. Because I might be doing some kind of rolling back, A/B rolling back and forth between these two, and I also might layer them to make more. So oftentimes you'll find yourself having to add like maybe 3 or 4 of these. So I'm going to move this over to where my fight scene fades in, right about there. I'm going to have this fade in at the beginning here.
Just take it.
So it fades in, way too loud. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to turn it down. And we're going to get this way down to where it just sounds good.
Oh, that's all I got. Take it. Sam, help me. Let go.
And that sounds kind of good there. That sounds maybe just a little quieter. You're just going to get it so it's just kind of this subtle noise. It's going to add texture to your shot. Now, if you want to add other sound effects, we could add things like a dog barking in the background, or some birds chirping if it's during the daytime. If it's nighttime, some crickets chirping or something like that. And you can find a lot of these effects online. Right here, it ends before the end of the movie here. So I'm going to just grab this and copy it. Do Control-C and copy, Command-C and copy. I'm going to kind of overlap it on the end here and paste. And it does that little crossfade. And then at the end, I'll have to find a section where that fades out. I'm going to grab my razor. Let's zoom up on this. Command, scroll, click, cut that off. V to select and click on it, delete. And I'm going to grab the end here and fade it out with video fade at the end. And there we go. Hit Command S. I'm going to save this, save my fight scene, update all my... I keep hitting Command S and saving all my files as well. Okay, so once you get that ambient noise added, we're going to go back to this, and next we're going to add sound effects. And before I add sound effects, I'm gonna do one other thing. I'm gonna go in here and just find some crickets. Like I said, you can search and find crickets online. I've got like a little library here I'm using. There we go. Got some crickets there because these guys are in a warehouse, and just outside there might be some crickets. So I'm gonna drag my crickets in there, drop it in, and obviously that's not enough crickets to fill up the entire thing. I'm gonna play this back a little bit. Listen to it. Way too loud, so I'm just going to crank that down there. Crank it down even more. And this is like outside, so I'm just doing this just to kind of make a point that you can add ambient noise upon ambient noise and make make it really kind of come to life, but the crickets might not really be working in this, but it's okay. I'm going to add them in there anyway just to kind of make it a little bit more interesting. There we go. And I'm going to turn that down a little bit more just so you hear them just kind of outside in the background, just really subtle. There we go. So I got the room tone, I got the ambient noise. I'm going to right click and add a couple more tracks here. So I'm going to add a couple more stereo tracks. And I'm going to call these ones sound effects. Sound effects 1. Copy that name. Paste that in here and add sound effects 2. So I've got 2 tracks for sound effects. You're probably going to need to do multiple tracks for sound effects depending on how effect intensive you're getting. But let's start going through this and seeing where we need to add sound effects.
Just take it all. That's all I got.
Crickets are too loud. Turning that down a little bit more. There we go. Okay, first of all, there's like a little crunch where she bites his hand right there. I'm just going to search, and some of these you might have to create on your own. Sometimes you just get a microphone like a Zoom recorder and do your own and create some of your own sound effects. Sometimes that's what I do. But as I collect sound pieces free offline and ones that I record, I keep compiling them into a sound effects folder. So I've got them all collected and I've got them named so I can find them easily. Let's see if there's a crunch in here. Let's see if I've got a crunch, and I do have some crunches here. I've got a bone crunch and bite. Ooh, there's a bite hard crunch. Let's listen to that one. There we go. That's not really going to work very well there, but I'm just for the sake of getting this timed out properly, I'm going to drop that in. I'm going to use that there where she bites. Now what you got to realize with an Audition is it doesn't work by frame rate like video does. You know, this video is 24 frames per second. The sound effects or the sound that it does is more of a sampling. It works to probably about like 80 frames a second or more. Is what that kind of equals out to. So you can really kind of slide these things. You've got a lot of leniency in just how you can slide these in just exactly where you need to. You'll notice that these don't edit to the frame. It's like it's way more fine tuning than that, which is nice. So I'm going to get here where she's got her mouth open, ready to bite his hand here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that right on the frame where the bite happens. Right there is where a tooth kind of finally bites down. So, and I've got that right on the frame. I'm going to zoom up here, and I'm going to grab this little bite sound. I'm going to drag that up and put that crunch noise right there on the frame where she bites and it crunches. Now this is going to be exaggerated, but watch this. Let me cut off the rest of this. R for razor. Click on that. V as in Victor for your standard selection tool. Select that. Delete. And let's watch this. Okay, that's pretty exaggerated, so I can just simply grab this. I can hold down my command key or my control key on a PC and turn this down so we have more of a subtle crunch. There we go. Actually, that doesn't sound too bad. So then he takes a swing at her and hits the wall. With that bat swinging, probably want some sort of whoosh with that. Right there is the bat swinging. So I'm going to go search my sound effects library or find these things. Sometimes you can just make a list and then go online and try to find the things that you need. Let's see. We got a golf swing whoosh. Oops, that's the WMA. I don't like WMAs. They won't play on a Mac, so I'm going to use air whoosh wave. That's too slow of a whoosh. There we go. There's a nice fast whoosh there. So I'm going to grab that one, throw it in. Sometimes, like I said, these will sound very exaggerated until you turn them down. And sometimes when you turn them down, give them the right volume, that can sound pretty good. It sound, I want to say realistic, but it's really not realistic, these sound effects. There we go. Okay, so I've got that timed out. I got this right on the frame where the whoosh should happen, and I'm going to put that thing right over the top of over that frame there. I'm going to turn this down a bit, mix it, and let's see how it sounds. And there we go. And that actually sounds pretty good. A little whoosh, maybe a little too loud. And it hits the wall. All right, let's show a couple punch noises here. As he comes, he swings. A lot of sound effects artists would say never use the same sound effect twice. They would, because every sound would sound unique. But I'm just going to copy that previous clip. I did Command C, and I'm going to do Command V and paste it. but I should really be finding a new one here. And I'm going to get that right on the frame where the bat is swinging right there, and get the middle of that whoosh right on it, kind of the pinnacle of that whoosh right on it. There we go. And then she swings a knife. So we could just do the same thing here. Like I said, we shouldn't be using the same sound effects, but I'm just going to do it just to kind of show you the effect that this has on. She swings. He swings down and misses. So a whole lot of whooshes here. There you go. Let's get to a punch here. Or actually a slice. She slices his hands right there. So let's get a good slicing sound. See if we've got a slice. I've got the sword cutting the cloth here, and this is a pretty good sound, so I'm going to throw this in here and just see what this sounds like as she swishes it across right there. And I'm going to put that sound effect right there. She slices, and let's see what it says. And there we go. We got a nice cut sound. So it's a little too loud, so we just turn that down. Same process. So you just keep doing this until you get all your sound effects in. Let's get one good punch in here too. Okay, there's this kick right here, and I've got a good body kick I'm going to find here. Right there. So I'm going to grab that in. And once again, I'm going to get that lined up on the spot where she kicks. Right there is where her foot connects, right on that frame. And I'm going to zoom up and get the pinnacle of that kick sound right on top of the kick there. Zoom out, cut off the excess. There we go. So now watch this where she kicks him. She slices, kick, and man, that sounds like a big hefty kick where she really didn't kick him that hard and he fell on a pad there. And by the way, these are professional. We had a professional choreographer that was doing this, and he was taking them through the training and showing them. We had the crash pads and we had other things to keep these things safe. She is not really fighting with a knife. She's got a knife that she's swinging at him. That is actually a prop knife. It's a slightly hard plastic knife that she's fighting with. So if you do stuff like this, you got to either have a professional with you, or you got to know what you're doing, or people are going to get hurt. So disclaimer: don't be making fight scenes when you don't know what you're doing, or if you don't have a professional to help you do choreography and props as well. Anyway, so that's kind of the process here. So you're going to be doing sound effects, and sometimes you might need to double up a sound effect. What I'm going to do here on this one is I'm going to get a bone crunch, even though it wouldn't make sense. I don't think she crunches any bones, but just look at the impact this has if you need to do a double sound effect here. I'm going to find a bone break here. Bone crunch. There we go. I'm going to drag my bone crunch in here, and I'm going to move that over and get it lined up at the same place right there. And I'm going to turn, I know these are going to peak, so I'm going to turn these down and mix them. And let's see the way that sounds. And a big crunch with a hit there. So I'm going to move, I'm going to move this one over a little bit. Just cut off the end and get that big old crunch right there where she kicks. There we go. And then we got a big crunchy noise with it. And it sounds great. All right. So after we get the sound effects in, kind of the last part that I'm showing here is adding a music soundtrack. Now, if you're doing an independent movie where somebody's composing it for you, you're going to hand this off to the composer, and he or she's going to conduct it and pull it together and give you back some music that should time out from beginning to end. And that's kind of a whole different issue. But if you're going to be grabbing music from something like there's websites such as Incompetech where you can get royalty-free music and use it as much as you want, just as long as you credit Incompetech for the music. And if you go to, just put in a little plug for Incompetech here, if you go to the royalty-free music section and do a full search, you can actually search by types of music here. You can say eerie music, you can do search, and it's got some really cool stuff on here, some really great music. And say you want to, here's a little creepy music here. We're going to click on that and listen to it. There's some good creepy music. So if you need creepy music, you can go to more, and he's got right here what you need to put in the credits. For that song right there, you got to copy and paste that and put it in your credits, and that's it. and you can actually download the MP3. So he's got a lot of good stuff, and he's got some stuff you have to pay for, but he's got a big royalty-free section on there as well, like Kevin MacLeod does. So I think I've got some music on here that I'm going to use that was conducted by a friend of mine. Got some nice danger music going on there. So now I'm going to go back into Audition. I'm going to right-click in here, go to Track, and we're going to add a stereo track. And like I said, I'm probably going to add 2 of these in case I'm doing mixing for 2 different tracks of music to transition from spot to spot. So I'm going to go Music 01 and Music 02. And now I'm going to grab my action music here. I'm going to drop it in. Okay, put this music up here. And now I'm going to start that music where the action starts. Let's get that music actually where the action starts here. I'm going to get that toward the beginning. Oops, drag that in way in there. So I'm going to pull this back here. And I'm going to start that music right where the kind of the danger starts.
Stay right there.
Right here he swings. And there we go. And now I just turn that down and get it to the level where it sounds pretty good. A little too loud, a little more down. I'm going to solo my music and see what level it's playing at. So it's playing about -18, so that's pretty loud. And sometimes it might need to be loud when it gets pretty intense. So, and there we go. Okay, and we're going to put the music in. If you have other tracks you can mix in to make this kind of bring it all together. Like this isn't long enough, so I'm going to kind of take it down a little bit, and I'm going to start it over again toward the end here and paste it in and see if I can kind of bring this back in here, mix that, and just find a good point to mix on. And the music starts again. And then actually with this, he gets stabbed in the back at the end, and I'm going to have the music kind of end right when he gets stabbed in the back. So I'm going to pull it out, mix that over a little bit more. There we go. The music kind of tones down when they get stabbed. So there we go. And save all that. And now when you're done and you want to take this back to Premiere, this is kind of the final step. So those are all the steps we've gone through here. We didn't really go through creating submixes. We didn't do enough tracks to really do submixes. I'm not really going to show that right now. But when you're done, you're going to perform a final mix. So you're going to go up to File, Export, Mix Down Multitrack, and you're going to mix down the entire session. Before you do that, I would really go through and listen to it and just make sure that everything is mixed properly and it all sounds good. Do it on a good set of speakers so you can really tell what's going on with it. I'm going to go to File, Export, Multitrack, Mix Down, and do the entire session. I'm going to choose a location here. Right now I'm just going to go to my desktop and save it on my desktop. I'm going to call it Fight Scene Final Mix Down. Let me get rid of that XML name there so it just says Mix Down Wave File. We're going to hit OK. You have some settings here. You can do it at 96, so it keeps it at the same sample setting and the same bit depth and everything. So it's just the same as the source there. So, and now we're going to hit OK, and it will export that out. Once you're done, you go back to Premiere. And this is what I usually do. I usually kind of leave my main audio alone that I did in case I ever need to reference that for some reason. I'm going to go here to my Fight Scene Final, and I'm going to duplicate that timeline. And I'm going to call this duplicate timeline Sound. So I have the exact same timeline, but with sound in it. Now I'm going to open that up. So now I have basically 2 timelines. My old original one I can leave alone, and my final one, which I'm going to actually just grab all the audio out of and delete it. And if you want to detach things like that, I just said you can either lock your video like this. That's probably the best way to go, actually. Then hit Command A and select everything and delete. And it will leave alone the video because it's locked. So now I'm going to import my WAV file here. And all you have to do is grab that, drag it in, put it right, lock it at the beginning, and notice it's the exact same length, exact same time. And let's watch a little bit of that.
Stay right there.
Not fully sound mixed yet, but music starts, got sound effects. There we go. Let's get that big kick. I want to see that kick. Here's the kick. Yeah. So it needs a few more sound effects, but that is basically the process right there. So now if you want to see the entire sound mix done to the full edit and the full color corrected version, you can go ahead and watch that. Just click on the link right here and you can see that whole scene. So there you go. So if you have any questions, just send me a message and post comments and subscribe. So thanks. Good luck.